Trouble Together, Chapter 1 Old Memories Under the Stars. Tell me a secret, Augustine. They laid together under the stars that night on Route 3, hot cups of coffee held tightly in their hands. The air was cool but not yet cold. Summer had faded into autumn, and the trees around them had yet to fully shed their auburn cloaks. In the distance, Elamize and Volbeats danced over the small pond further up the route. Lysandre didn't get out here as often as he would like. In his younger days, the days when all he had to worry about was his GPA and not having to keep his rabbit investors happy, he had made efforts to go hiking or camping regularly, to the best of his ability. He loved the beauty of the natural world, the way the wind would whisper through the grass, the way the sweet scent of flowers wafted gently through the air over them. It was something magnificent. "You already know all of my secrets, my dear," Augustine answered him. His voice was not yet slurred by sleep, but he was tired. He'd been working late into the night in recent weeks. It had been a struggle just to talk him into coming out. The stars hadn't been enough. "We always go to stargaze," Augustine had complained, surrounded by mountains of books and old parchments. "And I'm very, very busy with research." Of course, he was always busy with research, and had been shut in working for over a week. But like a mercrow, he could always be lured away with something shiny and rare. The meteor shower did the trick. They would race by, burning for only a second in the night sky over them. It was a thing of beauty, certainly. The universe was a vast and mysterious place that would, for now at least, only live in their imaginations. These brief glimpses were worth their weight in gold. Lysandre hummed in reply, glancing over to Augustine, who laid next to him on the red gingham picnic blanket they had spread out earlier. Shoulder to shoulder, their arms were entwined and their fingers laced together. Naturally, in their other hands, they each held their coffees, ready to sip. Augustine's thick and curly hair was a mess under him, but something about it only added to his scruffy charm. He watched the meteors fly overhead with the same look he wore when he held old and worn books in his grasp, some mix of tenderness and wistfulness. "I'm sure you have more secrets," Lysandre finally settled on. "You're a very private man, after all." "Me?" Augustine laughed aloud at that. "Private? You must be thinking of someone else, my love." "There are so many things you don't talk about," he disagreed. It was strange when you considered the good professor. He was certainly charismatic, could carry a conversation for hours and hours and still be an absolute delight the entire way through. You couldn't grow bored with him no matter what subject reared its head. Though as good of a conversationalist as he was, he seemed to go out of his way to avoid speaking about himself at any great length or depth. Some things Lysandre knew must have been painful. He tried not to pry in those cases. Even now that he'd known Augustine for 12, 15 years, sometimes he felt like there was much he still didn't know about him. On nights like these, he liked to poke and prod and see where it got him. "I don't talk about things that aren't interesting, I'm afraid. All the juicy secrets are yours already." "I'll tell you one of mine. Let me think." Lysandre pursed his lips, staring into the meteors, the stars, the eternity of the blackness over them. He thought back over the years, further and further, until he felt the burn of embarrassment locked away in some dark recess. He looked again to Augustine, who had shifted, and their eyes met. "When I was in school," he told him, "I auditioned for a role in a musical." Augustine's brows shot up to his hairline. "Did you?" he pressed, on the verge of another laugh. "Really? I never took you for the type. Did you get the part?" "No, I tripped and fell off the stage and broke one of the chairs," Lysandre admitted. His larger hand flexed against Augustine's as he heard him choke back a snicker. "I can picture it," Augustine cackled. "One second you're there, the next you're flying. Ah, you poor thing, that must have been mortifying. But I see what you mean. Give me a moment." Lysandre was patient. Augustine was quiet for a long while, but the meteors shooting overhead kept both of their interests as they waited. He made a show of humming and hawing, sorting through his thoughts until finally he smiled wide and rolled over, draping himself over Lysandre's front. He shivered as he felt Augustine's lips at his neck, but merely wrapped his arm around his back as he felt scruffy stubble and curly hair tickle his skin. When I was 15, Augustine said between gentle kisses, I was in a garage band for 6 weeks. It was Lysandre's turn to raise a brow, and finally he glanced down to Augustine, who beamed up at him with mirth. He took Lysandre's silence as a prompt to continue. I thought if I could be good at guitar, it would impress girls. We played a lot of AC/DC. Why only 6 weeks? Mother and father didn't really approve. Still a smile. But it was amazing to Lysandre how much and how quickly one smile could change with such a simple question. It was hollow and forced, and Lysandre knew well enough by now to not ask why. Augustine would say when he was ready. Perhaps the day would come, and perhaps it wouldn't. But for the time being, it would be one of his more elusive secrets. The meteors were coming fewer and further, but it was hard for Lysandre to focus on. For each less meteor he saw, Augustine peppered more and more kisses along his skin. Lysandre was certain he was trying to distract him. Normally, he was stalwart, unyielding, indomitable. He did have a not-so-secret weakness for the good professor, though. Your coffee, he mumbled, catching sight of the paper cut toppled and leaking onto the grass, just at the edge of their blanket. But Augustine only laughed his most devilish laugh, all traces of sleep seemingly forgotten. Forget about that, he purred. I thought you were more interested in me, anyways. And as Augustine shifted again to lean over him, Lysandre found it absolutely impossible to do otherwise.